Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are pleased and proud to have Genevieve Holmes with us from HMH. She conducted our last session in April. She will be sharing additional information with us today. She has a wealth of knowledge. She also is utilizing HMH in her own classroom, and so her perspective is critical as we look at something called Teacher's Corner today, as well as data and how to use reports. So, Genevieve, thank you for being with us today, and take it away.
Perfect.
You turned.
Yeah, I did. Thank you, guys. I was trying to press enter for to share my Padlet. Thank you guys for having me back again. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So, just like last time, definitely please post your questions in the chat. I don't necessarily believe in a parking lot, and so definitely. I clicked on the wrong thing. Definitely post the questions in the chat, or also when and if you guys want me to slow down or speed up or restate or whatever. So the link I just posted in the chat is to my Padlet. I've uploaded some of the things in response to some of the questions you guys had from April, and I'm looking at my other laptop to pull up some of those questions. One of them had to do with the Rigby Leveled Library. And so it says, can they make the Rigby Leveled Library searchable for all grade levels at once? Unfortunately, to put all grade levels in at once is not doable, but I do understand some need for that. And so I have uploaded into my Padlet the Rigby Leveled Library table of contents, which also has the Lexile level and the reading level on that chart, along with the Lexile correlation chart. Here you will also find the Into Reading Participant Guide, and I uploaded this culturally responsive text. This kind of highlights some of our texts within our different modules and different grades that are written from different authors, a very diverse crowd. One of the things that I love about Into Reading is its diverse nature in books and genres and authors and everything. So with the Rigby Leveled Libraries, I know and I feel your frustration. I go in every Sunday night and I assign my group of students that I'm a full-time, part-time sub for their Rigby Leveled Library. We are no longer able to do the little book bags that you guys would assign as a class, or like for their 20 minutes of reading a night. And so I go in and assign them digitally. Now there are some students, like I have a second grader who's reading on a fourth grade level. And so what I actually go in and do is I go into the Rigby Leveled Libraries for fourth grade, and I'll go into my format. We have all of our Rigby Leveled readers as available as PDFs. And so I download it as the PDF, and actually these are all the Take and Teach lessons. Let me go into I download it as a PDF and then upload it into Google Classroom. And granted, that's probably not the HMH way to do it, but I do need books for them to read, and so I'll go in and I'll do that for them. In fact, let me just go into the components instead of just going through Leveled Readers PDF. And so this is on the ICE. It is exactly like the Rigby Leveled Readers, and again, I just save it to my computer and upload it into their Google Classroom so that they have access to Rigby Level readers that are on their level. And as it loads up, it is a big document, and that's why it works well assigning it through Google Classroom. But that's kind of how I cater to the needs in regards to the Rigby Leveled Libraries to readers who are either below grade level or on grade level for these particular books. And since they don't have access to it on their per their grade level. There is a rhyme or reason why we don't stick all levels from A through Z on the Rigby leveled readers, and we just kind of give you guys access to your grades. And I could go find that rhyme and reason and let you know. The other question was in regards to the intervention, the read and respond journals. When you do assign them the read and respond journal, so I've gone in and let me go ahead and log in as a student. If they don't complete it all in one sitting, so you can see right here, read and respond interactive journal, the space flight simulator, they have the option to continue. And so I've already gone in and answered 2 questions. So let me go ahead and answer, how does Rachel help Jim in the simulation by using her sense of sight? I'm going to put a very obvious answer. She sees. I'm going to go ahead and press next. At the end of the scene, does Jen? Again, I am just guessing. Obviously, I'm not being a very good student. But let's say the student closes it out. They could always continue it, and the information will be saved. So you can see that's the last question I left off of, and I answered it. As far as teachers for you guys are concerned, if you go into your My Class and into your assignments dashboard, you can see right here, read and respond journal for getting the vote. I've had one student completed it. So that's how I would go in and kind of grade their answers. And again, it's based off of rubrics on a 2-point scale. And so you would just go in, there's the question, and go through and assign them. So that answers the read and respond journal question. Let me look and see. I have uploaded some of the suggestions you guys have made in regards to like daily slideshow. I do know the daily slideshow, I'm going to go to your Discover tab. The older grades, like 6th through 12th, have gotten more and more daily slideshows added to their programs. So we're going to make 2 big updates on Ed. The first date is on June 1st, and then the second date is August 1st for back to school. So I would definitely encourage you guys to keep an eye out on your resources. If we add the daily show and teach slideshow, the slideshow is going to show up under your resources tab under let me show you 2nd grade so that you guys know what to look for. So you can see right here, it'll be titled like a slide deck. And you'll know when there's that big update, and I'm just going to go to grade 10. Right here, you see this big blue button on what's new. If you open up that what's new button, it's going to tell you what resource is new. So right here, notice the note anchor chart, where to find it, and how to use it. So we've added a lot of different resources. You can see available as of February 2021. This is going to be available as of June 2021. So anytime you see that blue button on Ed, definitely click it so you can see what's kind of new. Remember, I shared with you Ed is this constant, ever-flowing type of platform. And I am looking at resources like Know It, Show It. You ask, can it be assigned online or does it have to be printed out? Right now, it is only available as a PDF, and it's not even an editable PDF. I know with some of our printable resources, such as the grammar worksheets, the Know It, Show It, those are only available as a PDF. I was looking on our internal space today where we communicate all that information, and even as of yesterday, another consultant had made the recommendation of, can we get it to be an assignable resource? So I have definitely passed on your messages. The last one is someone asked, is there a way to color code the different components? I would love it if there was a way to color code the different components, because every other part of Ed is of Into Reading is color coded, and unfortunately Ed is not color coded, so I have passed on that suggestion. So if you guys want to keep asking the questions, either Angie or I will be answering them to the best of our knowledge, and then we'll definitely pass on the suggestions that you guys have made. So we're going to talk today about Into Reading assessments and how to leverage that data and reporting tools to accelerate growth. So looking at the assessments, the data that they produce, and how you can really use that data to effectively inform your instruction. And so these are our learning outcomes today. First of all, we're going to look at the different assessments available to you, how to kind of select and use what assessment and when, and then really looking at the data and make informed decisions about how you're going to teach. Again, I stuck my Padlet link in the chat. I don't believe in a parking lot, so please ask questions. Before we get into all the data, we're going to talk really quickly about Teachers Corner. I would encourage you guys to go to your Facebook pages and type in Teachers Corner from HMH. This is a great resource. I know in February we gave away books on here, but again, people go in there and just ask questions. So here is the Earth Day poster that we added. Back in April, we add backgrounds, virtual backgrounds. We ask questions. So if you had a magic wand, what's one thing you would add? So obviously, we're taking all of these suggestions that are on here, and we transfer it or we give the information to the curriculum developers. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go in there and like this page. So you can access Teachers Corner by going to your Professional Learning tab on Ed. On Teachers Corner, you have a slew of resources from live events to a break room. I would definitely encourage you guys to sign up for any live events that pique your interest. I know I shared with other grades in December, I was able to host a live event for 352 teachers across really mostly New York City, but it was open to the whole country or anyone who has access on Ed. And it was a your questions answered, so they would just legitimately type in their questions and we would just answer those questions. Whether it's live if we saw a common theme, or we have a team of coaches who are monitoring the chat so that we could get your questions answered. Also, we have a getting started, and just like you guys would use the filters on your Discover tab, you would use your filters here. So right here, you can see I have it already pre-selected to filter it out by Into Reading, but I'm going to go ahead and add the reading growth measure because I'm looking for more information on that. And as you go across, you'll see whether it's an article, a video, or an interactive component, and about how long it's going to take you. And so these are really great resources to get your questions answered. We will talk about Bridge and Grow in a little bit. And then also we have the break room. The break room isn't necessarily Into Reading program specific as more as it is just teacher and being a good person and healthy person, self-aware person. And so we've got a bunch of different topics and videos there. Another option to get help on Ed is to press the little question mark. And you could go in here and view all help topics. And again, they have quick reference guides, tutorial videos. How do I will say, and actually I didn't mention this in K through 3. One of the things that I do is whenever in August and September your students will log on for the first time to access some of the resources, I do take them through all of the features on their Ed platform. So I sign in as a student and I go through their dashboard, the Discover, the Assignments tab. Some of my teachers utilize some of these videos so that they can go in there and find the different resources. one of the videos I was going to play for you is this video, Welcome to Teachers Corner, which even expands more on the resources available to you within Teachers Corner. So again, you access this Ed Help by clicking on the little question mark. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions about Teachers Corner and our professional learning opportunities? I know during the course of the year, we've grown from not only just being able to have your virtual classroom built into Google, but right now we have expanded it to Google Meet, to Zoom, and so forth. So we have, Ed is this constantly fluctuating, changing platform. We're always adding new things. I will say, look for in August, when you guys go back to school, you'll have a vocabulary interactive practice, which is a great assignable resource on Ed for all modules and weeks. All right, so let's get into looking at the data. Oh, I did forget the family room. So just like you guys have that support for US teachers, this is my student-facing platform. You can tell it says Welcome Student. Here, if they go to the For Families tab, they're going to be brought to the family room. In the family room, they have support just like you guys do. So this is their getting started support, how to make that digital annotation, how to navigate Ed's platform, and 5 questions your teachers wants you to ask them. We also have different program support, and again, they would utilize the filters based on their programs, but we have all our programs from science, social studies, and math on here. So that is the family room, and so just like you guys have your professional teachers corner, they have that option too. So I want you to think, how does assessment data currently inform your instruction? And as you're thinking about that, consider the questions at the bottom. You know, why do we engage in progress monitoring, or how does progress monitoring differ from summative assessments? So progress monitoring, when implemented correctly, has been proven to have benefits for both, obviously, students and teachers. According to the National Center on Student Progress Monitoring, consistent and persistent progress monitoring really helps your students learn more quickly because they are receiving that differentiated and adaptive instruction. It also is going to support you in making more informed instructional decisions, and oftentimes it's going to provide you that evidence of student progress to hold students accountable for their learning. There's this power in progress monitoring, and it is to provide those meaningful performance data while students are still learning so that you can adjust instruction. It is no longer really that cookie cutter instruction method where one size fits all. And so you're going to use both formative and summative assessments along with actionable feedback to work together to support your students in building that true comprehension of the material. Likewise, you're going to use both that formative and summative assessment types to support you in ensuring your students are going to understand the content during and even after learning. So this multi-layered assessment approach provides that holistic picture of that student's progress and their comprehension. Into Reading is really built on the promise of students achieving these targeted outcomes. It does this through meaningful use of data and critical feedback loops for really just-in-time instruction at each student's level without the need to spend hours grouping students and planning instruction. I will say at the beginning, you might be spending hours trying to find and locate all the resources that we have for you, but it won't be because you need help grouping your students and planning. So we're going to look at how Into Reading assessment really helps you adjust instruction, looking at the resources and the grouping. So on the left side of the image, you have different various Into Reading assessments, and these are what you're going to use to collect data on your students' performance. When students complete these assessments online, Ed is going to collect all this information for you and give you that data that you need so that you can group your students appropriately or even look at the instructional resources to help increase your students' growth. I'm going to take a snapshot of this and send it to you guys, because these are all the different types of assessments within Into Reading. I'm going to start with the screening assessments. You're going to administer at the beginning of the school year to really provide those preliminary information about students' performance. Look at the diagnostic assessments to use as a follow-up for students who score below expectations on the screening assessment. And notice that in addition to the intervention assessments, the guided reading benchmark assessments and the growth measure are both listed. So you're going to administer these at the beginning of the year to really establish that baseline data, like Lexile level or the guided reading level. Next are our formative assessments, which are going to provide that ongoing feedback on how students are meeting the learning objectives, and you're going to use this to inform your daily instruction. Finally, the summative assessments, like the module assessments and the growth measure, assess the mastery of skills taught throughout the module. So first, let's look at the reading growth measure. This is a benchmark assessment for grades 2 through 6. Actually, it's grades 2 through 12 that sheds light on each student's academic progress in reading and language arts comprehension. It's a computer adaptive test of about 35 questions. And so how I explain it to students is you're going down the road, and if you answer this question right, you're going to get off on an exit. And then if you answer that question wrong, it's going to take you left, but then you have the opportunity to turn right. It's a long road, and as students answer questions correctly or incorrectly, the difficulty of the questions that follow changes in response to their performance. So you could find this assessment right on your Ed screen, and you're going to have to go in there and assign it to you, to your students. So you're going to administer this test 3 times during the course of the year, at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end. And when you guys log in on your dashboard, it's going to tell you the reading growth measure is now open. The test takes less than 45 minutes, but for some of your students who need more time, they could definitely log back on. All right. So one of the first things that you're going to get, the pieces of data, is going to be based off of the growth assessment. This data is given to you in real time. As students are wrapping it up, you're going to see the little dots kind of pop up on that spectrum. So you can see right here, current performance for all students in class. I've got students all over the spectrum from below level, above level, and so forth. As they take the assessment again, it's going to show you the change in performance from the previous test. And then as you go across the bottom of the screen, it's going to give you their current Lexile level, the expected growth. So let me go into Ed. I have only one data point for my students. So again, you go to My Class, Data and Reports, go into the Reading and Language Arts, and you're going to see the growth report for all my students. And so here is student number 7. He tested at about an 875. There's the domain performance. Again, it's based off of reading comprehension and your language. And as you go down and across, you have a lot of data points that it gives you from the scales and scores on the report. So once you've administered the growth measure, you'll be able to use several different reports to understand student performance at both the class and the individual level. And so anyone have any questions about the growth measure? Again, it is something that will stick with them if they use HMH programs in the upper grades as well. So now I'm going to go into my assessment, filter by component, and we're going to pull up the benchmark evaluation guide. So the guided reading benchmark assessment kit is used as a screener assessment, which can determine your students' independent and instructional reading levels. And the benchmark evaluation kit, it's as simple as it sounds. And one of the steps on here is the retelling of the story, which is obviously missing from the digital version, where the students retells the selection using the different instructions on page 12. So you would just go down and it tells you exactly how to do it. You ask the questions and see if they're successful in the prompts that you give them. And then there is an assessment at the end. This assessment can also be assigned digitally if you want to. So that's the benchmark assessment. Again, that is a more timely assessment, but again, the data it provides is great. So we're going to look at a few other formative assessments in more detail. Remember, we're going to administer these to monitor that student learning and then adjust instruction. So you're going to find correct and redirect throughout your entire teacher's guide. You can note which students require the most support in these different activities, and then follow up with additional instruction or even review some stuff in small group instruction. These can be assigned from Ed or downloaded and printed. You've got the selection quizzes, which are going to be administered after the first read of the selection to measure that comprehension of the MyBook selection. I know in some of my classes, I actually just project the selection quiz. I read it aloud and I tell them on their sticky note or the piece of paper in front of them, write number 1 or write your name, write your seat number and write number 1 what your answer is, whether it's A, B, C, and D. And please don't say it out loud. And so we go through these easy 5-question selection quizzes together as a class, and they don't look at it as an assessment because we're doing it as a class. You also have the weekly assessments. These are 10 to 15 questions depending on the grade level, and these measure those foundational skills, the comprehension, the grammar. So you could look at the week at a glance page to kind of review the skills measured in the weekly assessment. And finally, you've got the leveled reader quizzes. These consist of 5 multiple choice items to measure that comprehension of the leveled reader. So I know I showed you with the Rigby leveled library, the available or the PDFs of the Rigby leveled library. You also have here the leveled reader quizzes. And you have them available both in print and digitally. And for some reason, last class, I had a difficult time pulling them up as an assignable resource. And it's showing me the exact same thing right now. So let me go in. But you do have the option for them to be assignable. For me, nobody does reads a Rigby leveled library without completing the quiz. So you do have that option. Let me go ahead and filter it by format. Oh, there they are. Keeping up with Claire. So for me on Sunday, I go in and assign all my students different Rigby leveled readers. And then on Friday of each week, by changing the date, the start date, and we're going to act like today is Friday. This allows for the assessment to appear right when they log in. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that. And so when students log in, you can see right now I've got 5 assignments due today. And when I refresh, it's going to say 6. And you can see as I go down, there's that TikTok check the clock online assessment. So with my students with Rigby leveled readers, they either have to do the leveled quiz, which is only 5 questions, and most students opt to do this one to assess their reading and hold them accountable for their reading. Or they have the option to also I take the questions from the Take and Teach lessons and I upload them into just a Microsoft Word document and they answer those questions. or they have to do a graphic organizer. Like I said, most of them choose to do the assessments because it's only 5 questions. But in order for them to show up on their dashboard, just change that date to the date that you want it to show up. Otherwise, they're going to have to go into assignments and then go and find it. Let me think what other assessments to talk about really quickly. I think I'm good. Does anybody have any questions before we move into kind of the performance tasks? All right. So students have the opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge by completing different fun and engaging performance tasks. So I'm actually going to go to lesson 15. Here's where you're going to find that performance task. And so these they can make an award, they can write a story, they can write an informative article. The performance tasks are always going to be found in that last thing, and they always are the last lesson. They always tie back to that essential questions. Teachers can view a summary of each task. We have the skills that are taught along with the rubrics and standard associated with the task. And you could also see the format of the task. Also, we have the module practice or module project for at the end of each task that you could also assign. And then we have the end of unit writing task that's also there as an available performance task. So you guys have a lot of additional things to assign to kind of wrap up the unit. And I will say with my 4th and 5th graders, we've done a couple of these. I know it's easy to kind of forget about the end of module, either the module project or that performance task, especially when they're introducing the getting started. We're also already overwhelming you with all the information. So the performance task and the module project often get left off, but they are fun and engaging. Some of them require the students to create a comic strip or a video blog. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go in there and look at it. So there's a lot of summative assessments. Remember, we're going to administer these to measure growth over the course of the module, semester, or even in the year. The module assessments offer summative data about students' learning after the module is done. And so, of course, one of those is that growth measure the growth measure assessment. One of the things that came up in grades K through 3 have to do with your printables. So if you go into all your resources, I'm actually go into components, filter it out by your printables. I know K through 2 uses their printables for foundational skills to kind of assess their foundational skills. So again, I'm going to go instructional purpose, use my filters, and you have a whole slew of printables available to you to assess the different things from fluency to specific skills. And so don't forget, you guys have access to that because it's a great non-formal assessment to measure their learning as they go through. So again, you access that through your resources, printables, and then definitely utilize your filters to get to what you need. All right, are there any questions? I know you guys. All right, let's go into selecting and assigning within Ed before we go into the report. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys anything that is assignable through Ed will show up as that digital assessment. Again, you can go in there and filter it out by module. You can go in there and the assessment tab, and then you can also go in here and view all the resources for per the module, and go in the instructional purpose, click assessment, and here's going to be all the assessments, whether they're printable or assignable through Ed. right here in Vendors at Work, this is the weekly assessment for week 1. I'm going to go ahead, hit assign, and assign to the whole class. Again, I could change the due date, and that will change on where it appears, whether it appears in assignments or it appears on their dashboard. And it's as easy as pressing the assignments button and it gets pushed out. Now I'm trying to think, when you're looking at all the different assessments, for example, last Tuesday I gave my 4th grade team at St. Gabe's an assessment, and I had a handful of kids not do so well in it. And so I went in and created a custom assessment. And so if you go to your create button and you go to my assessment, I'm going to go into create assessment. I'm going to give it a name, select your subject, and then click on add item. We are in module 9. I'm going to go in there, and there's 18 different questions from the module assessment. And so because I don't want them to take the module assessment all over again, I'm going to go through all of the available assessments, and I'm going to pick a couple items from each quiz that we've taken throughout the courses of the week, or the courses of the 3 weeks. So this is going to be some items from the weekly assessment, and it's as simple as adding to it, or I could go in there and create my own items. And so these are all questions that I've already created. And so they're much more simpler than your average question. And then I'm going to press save and done. And then I could assign it directly from here. And so when you pull up the data from any assessment, you're going to go into data and reports. Definitely select reading and language arts. And as you scroll down, you have the ability to customize this report and then also export it. I know some of my students or some of my teachers export all their data into PowerSchool. And so that's where you would export it. But really, we began our learning by discussing the importance of data and feedback loops to support them. Now we're going to talk about reading the actual reports. So you have your assessment proficiency, which is going to give all the assessments together and how proficient your students are per when it groups all the assessments together. Here you have the snapshot of the average scores of all of your assessments. And then you can go through each individual assessment, and by clicking the arrows, you'll get access to them. So I'm going to go ahead and go right here. The Inventor, this was an online assessment that I gave to all my students. So I'm going to go ahead and see a report. This blue box we're going to get to in a second. The assessment report's the first report you see. It shows the overall class, and then you could click into it to go and look and see based off the average score. So you can see I've got my one student who's passed this quiz. He's showing as proficient. Any questions that I need to revisit? I know I had a lot of kids miss question number 12. And so Tuesday they took the assessment. Wednesday I went in and subbed, and I hit data and reports, and I revisited the most commonly missed question. And then my group of 6 students who didn't do so hot on the assessment, I'll tell you what I did with them in a little bit. But you can see this will list the most commonly missed questions. And then also it assesses the standards. So you can see right here, student number 7 took the assessment. He took 22 seconds on it, and I could go back and review how he did on it. This recommended groups, if you create your groups, it will place your students in 2 or 3 groups based off of what you need. And so all of my students, I hit recommended groups, and for those 6 students that didn't do so well, I took them together in a small group on that Thursday. We kind of addressed the module, and then that Friday they had the chance to retake that custom assessment that I just created. And any of the assessments you have, if you need help deciphering what is written about it, you can hover over the question marks and it'll give you exactly what the data and reports are, what it all means. So that's the reports on ed. And recommended groups. Now, if we go to the standards report, again, it will give you a snapshot of where your students are based off of the standards. And so if you need to teach to particular standards, there's several different ways to go and find the resources. The first one under your Discover tab, if you go into Bridge and Grow, we've created an Excel spreadsheet that you'll open that up. And I've already opened it up here. And you'll want to go ahead and filter it out by grade. So we've got 5th grade. I'm going to go ahead and take 3rd grade off. And then as we go across the standards, it's going to give me the resource title and the component that I need to go so that I can address that particular standard and hopefully bridge and grow the student in their knowledge of that standard. It is here where it'll tell you definitely use those read and respond journals or use the level take and teach lessons. You've got tabletop mini lessons. You have a whole slew of resources available to you to help build that bridge. Another area you could find is if you view by standards, your Virginia standards will show up. And I promise, I know Sharon and Sue Ellen, they were on with me last one, and Colorado was not my first state that was listed. So my states, they toggle every single time I log on to Ed. But if you want to see all the content available to you by state, you would just click on that particular state. And you can see right here for this standard, you've got 3 resources available. So it's going to pull up all the resources available, again, to address that standard. So you would just choose to view the content by standard. Does anybody have any questions in regards to standards-based reporting and addressing different standards? All right. So after we've looked at the data, so right here you can see Bailey, Christina, and Ramon. They didn't do so hot. We're going to go ahead and take that group of students and we're going to look at where what question they missed. So they all missed question 1, which has to do with identify who is this telling the story. So really author's purpose and who is telling the story. So I've created my groups. And now I'm going to go find the resources. So I know my students' areas of support now. I'm ready to find the necessary resources to really provide that targeted instruction. So for them, for this group, I'm going to use the guided reading using the tabletop mini lessons and the take and teach lessons. I can also use the graphic organizers to kind of support their learning as well. So when you're looking at reviewing your data and determining your students' needs, so for this purpose, we looked at the data and we said author's purpose, and you've grouped your students. Since you've used that online resources, take advantage of that grouping feature and some different options for differentiation include those would be leveled readers. You guys have you have 90 titles per class, per grade level. You also have those tabletop mini lessons, which is another great resource to really support that small group instruction, and the Rigby leveled library readers with the tabletop, with the take and teach lessons. You have English learner supports. They are built into your teacher's guide with the call outs, but we also have additional support with the tabletop mini lessons. So again, once you identify the need, you can just go in and find the different resources based off of your needs. Does anybody have any questions so far about everything from how to read the assessments, how to to pick and choose. I think it's important to know, and I think Sharon and Sue Ellen will definitely chime in, because we talked about over assessing and kind of choosing what assessments to use and when, because obviously you guys have different assessments on a state and a county level, and even on a school level. There's a bunch of different assessments you guys have access to. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Genevieve. Of course, this is a common question. What are county expectations, and what are we going to be asked to use? And from our standpoint, certainly we are asking you to, and this question came up particularly with guided reading benchmark assessments, and so we know schools have perhaps DRA, or some schools have purchased Jan's new assessment package, Faunus and Pinnell, what have you. And some schools are using the benchmark assessments in HMH. We're not determining which one to use. That's a school-based decision, as noted in our reading benchmark guide that's located on our instructional site. But we are asking that you are benchmarking, you're assessing students, you know exactly where they are, and you are using diagnostic assessments. We have certainly iStation right now. And so just balancing that, comparing the different assessments that you have available, comparing to what HMH is offering, and seeing which ones are best to use for the needs of your students, and making those planning and instructional decisions. Certainly, the more you use common assessments like those within HMH, they're aligned. They're going to be aligned to the lessons and the intervention lessons and the things that are included in HMH. When you start comparing, you're going to see a lot of similarities. The way iStation is assessing, and the way questions are worded on SOL tests, and that sort of thing within HMH. So we're happy to have those conversations with you. Certainly involve your administrators, and we will be having future discussions to help teachers work through this question as well.
Perfect. One of the things, and one of the components, you have different screening, diagnostic, and progress monitoring assessments. And these are just different articles, different tools that you can use when it comes to recommendations. So it says introduction and test overview. These, again, are going to pull up in a PDF. There's a lot of information here, and actually I need to go ahead and add it to my Padlet. But here you've got, for grades 5 and 6, really that oral reading fluency. And so I would definitely encourage you guys to go and look at some of these progress monitoring assessments and the screening, diagnostic, and filtering out by components, so that you can see even more options that you guys have. And this is actually something that I didn't even bring up with K through 3 because it's just so much information in here. But again, it talks about the recording forms, recommendations for data-driven instruction, and then just the overview for the progress monitoring assessments, and which ones to use and when. So it's much like the Foundational Skills and Word Study Studio. You guys have these assessments as well. All right, what question do you guys have? We've looked at all the different types of assessments that are available within ED, kind of how to search it, how to assign it, how to customize the different assessments, how to use the information from the data that ED pulls. That is the one nice thing, is if you can get all your assessments taken through ED, the amount of feedback that it gives you is, well, first, I know we have one training that talks about how much time it saves, and on typical school year, it saves you about 18 hours of time whenever you're looking at deciphering data and using it to make informed decisions. So we give you back 18 hours by letting ED do all of that data. All right, Sue Ellen and Sharon, is there anything else I missed?
I don't think so. I'm going to put in the link to the survey that we would like everyone to complete, please, at your earliest convenience. The more feedback we have, the better we can make future professional learning sessions and sharing of information. Also, suggestions that you have been very valuable. We send those back to HMH via Genevieve and/or Angie Clendenin, an additional rep through HMH with us, and changes are happening. And now that I've seen 3 of these, I can't remember if you pointed out the updates and where to find those, like what's new.
You're right. I did not point this out. All right. So June 1st, you're going to see some updates to Ed and Into Reading, and on really August 1st, I think were the 2 big dates. So when you log into Ed, again, any slides that we'll add, definitely look at the new things for under your resources. In February, we added the interactive vocab practice, which a lot of my teachers didn't know about that we added. So whenever you guys log on to Ed, it's going to give you a little note in your dashboard right here. Your messages is going to say, hey, we added this. And so this is very easy to kind of skip by. But when you go to your Discover tab, and I'm going to go into the grade 10 program, Into Literature is the adult version of Into Reading. And so you can see right here, it says what's new. And in fact, I was caught off guard last session because it says available as of June 2021 or June 2021. So whenever my teachers are going to log on June 1st, 2021, they're going to see what, where, filter, and tips. So it gives you what the resources. Our anchor charts were transferred all into slide format for the upper grades, where to find it and how to use it. So if you log on and you ever see this blue box, I would go ahead and tap it just to see what kind of updates have been made to Ed. And then anything else, now that I know sometimes we secretly update resources without telling the masses, I'll make sure that Angie or I definitely communicate to those with you, because that practice and application tab, this vocabulary interactive practice, it's a great resource if you guys haven't used it.
And we definitely recognize this is a lot of information. It was a lot of information last time, and we're trying to consolidate and share as much as possible with you in the hour that we have. But your feedback was very helpful last time, and that's why we're asking for it again, because what we're going to do is try to design some ways at the beginning of August to bring some of the highlights, the more pertinent things you need to know right away at the beginning of the year, and how to refresh your memories and bring those back to your attention that you've asked for. So we're planning ways to do that, but any additional feedback is quite helpful. Sharon, Linda, anything additional?
I don't think so. Thank you again, Genevieve, and thank
No
you
problem.
all for being here.
Definitely.
Really appreciate your time today, and thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day and finishing out your school year.